Hello, everybody. This is Andrei, and this is my podcast. So, today I'm going to be talking about Jiu-Jitsu, and I have a guest, Steven Hendricks. Please welcome him.
Hello.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Jiu-Jitsu, but specifically right now I'm going to be talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu history. And BJJ is the abbreviation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It goes back through the Gracie family to the original teacher, Mitsu Madeya, Kondi Koma, and his training in the Kodokan, the home of Judo. But first, I'll tell you a brief history of the creation and evolution of Judo. Okay?
Okay.
So, Judo. Judo was created by Jigoro Kano, 1860 to 1938. Jigoro Kano was a highly educated man. He is considered the founder of modern Japanese educational system that sought to combine and preserve the ancient martial arts tradition of Japan. You get that?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Kano refined the techniques, and he learned primarily from two traditional systems, the Tenshin Shuryu Ryu and the Kido Ryu. He founded his own style, Kodokan Judo, in 1882. One of the most important innovations in Kato's Judo was the emphasis placed on randori, or non-cooperative free sparring practice. The majority of ancient jiu-jitsu styles based their training on prearranged sequences of attack and defense known as kata. Although Kano acknowledged the value of kata practice, kata training is present in judo training to this day. He also realized the absolute necessity of learning to apply techniques in the most realistic manner. Randori allows the practitioner to develop the learning to apply techniques in the most realistic manner. Randori is really cool.
That's the guy who made the set techniques.
Yeah. Applying techniques against fully resisting opponents in as realistic mindset and technical proficiency needed to apply techniques against fully resisting opponents in a realistic mindset. A venue of safety allows. Kano's new style was put to the test in famous tournament of 1888, hosted by the Tokyo Police. Of the 15 matches pitting Kodokan Judo fighters against fighters of various classic styles of Jiu-Jitsu, the Kodokan won 13 matches and tied the other two. Kano's hybrid martial art and revolutionary methods of training had proven most effective. For several years, Kodokan Judo reigned supreme. All subsequent challengers representing traditional styles were defeated, and the superiority of Kodokan Judo appeared inaccessible. Then, about the turn of the 19th century, a monument event occurred when the Kodokan was challenged by a man named Matemon Tanabe. Tanabe was the headmaster of an obscure system of classical judo, the Fusen-ryu. The Fusen-ryu was unlike the other jiu-jitsu styles, that had sought to test their techniques against the Kodokan. Fusen-ryu fighters were expert at fighting on the ground, an area subsequently lacking in Kodokan syllabus of technique. Up to this point,
Wait, how did they fight before? If
they fought in standing up. Like the Fusen-ryu fighters were like ground fighters, and the Kodokan guy, he and his gym, they were like more like tripping and top fighting. So and up to this point, its evolution judo techniques were entirely composed of stand-up throw methods. In the matches that followed, all representatives of Kodokan Judo were taken to the ground and submitted by the fighters in Fusen-ryu. So they basically all lost. The result of Kodokan Fusen-ryu matches highlighted the relevance of the importance of ground fighting techniques in a dramatic fashion. And Kano invited Tanabe to teach ground grappling at the Kodokan, so they can both learn, so they can just all teach the students. Ground fighting became very popular at the Kodokan, and all students began practicing both throwing and ground grappling techniques. At about the time grappling techniques of the Fosen-ryu entered the Kodokan curriculum, a young man named Mitsuo Made began his judo training. So now I'm going to talk about him for a bit. His name is Mitsuo Made. He was born 1878 and he died in 1941. He was a martial arts prodigy who eventually became one of the greatest fighters in judo history. Made originally practiced classical styles of jiu-jitsu, eventually entering the Kodokan to study judo. After remaining undefeated in judo tournament competition, Kano sent Made to the USA in 1904, spread the message of Kodokan judo. Over the course of his career, Made fought in literally hundreds of matches, grappling without the gi and fighting in mixed matches that include striking and kicking, commonly referred to as the no-holds-barrel fights during his travels. Made fought in the United States, Great Britain, and in continental Europe, Cuba, Mexico, and finally Brazil. Throughout his career as a professional fighter, after engaging in over 1,000 free fights, Made retired without ever losing a match. So that's like 1,000 in a row or more without losing. Just imagine that. The culmination of Made's training in classical jiu-jitsu, and especially judo, tempered by his extensive combat experience against all types of challengers, resulted in a realistic street effective method of fighting. Okay, did you get that, Steven?
Yeah.
Pretty interesting, right? He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a while ago still. So, now I'm going to talk about the Gracies that changed jiu-jitsu forever.
Wait, so are you telling the techniques of judo or jiu-jitsu?
Now I'm going to, now, that was all about judo. And judo was first just standing up, and it changed, there was a whole new sport that changed into jiu-jitsu. So, judo's way older than jiu-jitsu, basically.
Is jiu-jitsu ever standing up?
Yeah, they start standing up all the time.
Oh.
Yep, in tournaments. So, the Gracies. Mitsuo Made finally settled in Brazil and opened an academy of jiu-jitsu. One of his students was a young man named Carlos Gracie, which started the Gracies. After studying with Made for several years during the 1920s, Carlos opened his own academy in 1925. Carlos and his brothers established a solid reputation by issuing the now famous Gracie Challenge. All challengers were welcome to come and fight the Gracies in no-holds-barrel, abbreviated as NHB matches. The Gracie fighters is illegal. Yeah, it's competition they hold called the Gracie Challenge. So the Gracie fighters emerged victorious against fighters of all different backgrounds. Because this was a sport before they were there, so they just learned it.
Oh.
So yeah, they beat a bunch of guys from different backgrounds. The Gracies continued to develop the strategies and techniques they learned from Made, honoring their skills with realities of real fighting. Several members of the Gracie family began to immigrate to the United States in the late 1980s. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became world famous in mid-1990s when Royce Gracie won a string of victories in the early Ultimate Fighting Championship, abbreviated as UFC competitions. An event pitting martial arts... What?
I just said, because that's what they're called nowadays.
Yeah. An event pitting martial arts and fighters of various disciplines against each other in an NHB format shortly after Royce's brother Rickson went undefeated in similar events in Japan, and other members of the Gracie clan were equally as successful in MMA fights around the US. It became quickly apparent that the fighters, versed only in punching and kicking, lost every time around they faced a BJJ trained opponent. At present, all fighters in open rules events, now popularly called mixed martial arts or MMA, which I said before, train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to some context. The immigrants of Gracie's, so basically everybody in MMA trains in Jiu-Jitsu because it will really help you. Because when they like take you down, you can basically like choke them out, which I do. So yeah. The immigrants of the Gracies and their particular brand of jiu-jitsu, which, with its time-tested and proven effectiveness in challenge matches and MMA fights, had a major impact on martial arts worldwide. So now I'm going to talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, although obviously similar to many aspects to Judo and other traditional systems of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, in some fundamental ways from all other related systems. Judo was originally designed as a powerful system of self-defense that also included a sportive component as the idea of self-cultivation and the mutual benefit of members of society. Presently, although the techniques of Judo may certainly be applied in real fighting situations, and many practitioners of the sport of Judo have applied their skills very effectively in non-sportive confrontations. As example, street fights. The emphasis in most schools is on sport competition. During the course of the last century, the rules of Judo began to emphasize meaning of achieving victory on competition that did not necessarily reflect the conditions of all of the fighting. For example, a Judo match may be won by a throw or a pin hold without a submission. These rules and limited groundwork that forbids many of the original submission holds found in the early Judo somewhat limit directly applicable to street fights. So Jiu-Jitsu is basically better in a street fight than Judo because they don't really train everything on the ground. They train basically a lot on the top, like standing. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu had followed a different course, namely technical training is limited to kata practice. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu had followed a different course in the last 80 years. The Gracie Challenge and participation in the countless free fights events that has led to different emphasis in fighting strategy and development of unique rules for a BJJ sport competition. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is divided into three broad categories, each mutually supported by of the others. Self-defense, including striking techniques and unarmed techniques against armed opponents. Free fighting competition, commonly referred to as Vale Tudo, or anything goes events, now popularly called MMA. And sport grappling without the gi, matches that include a wide range of submission holds but no striking, often called no-gi. Even the rules of sport grappling matches are designed to ingrain the proper strategy to be applied in the street. For example, in a sport Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match, points are awarded based on achieving superior positions, like mount, back, passing the guard, or just sweeping. Positions from which not only grappling techniques can be more readily applied, but also from which strikes may be applied or defended. Students naturally seek the positions that will garner them from most points, thereby consistently reinforcing the most efficient strategy for their real-life confrontations. This position submission strategy has proven to be the most effective for real-life confrontations, so it's basically better than Judo. So, yeah. So if you ever ask someone, if somebody ever asks you, what's better, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, or Chinese Jiu-Jitsu, it's Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The overall fighting strategy of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is designed to equip a physically smaller or weaker individual with an effective method of defending against a larger or stronger attacker. So basically, small people can still do better against big people.
With good technique.
Yeah. So, in broad understanding. If they have good technique, yeah. When applying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu techniques, leverage is a paramount, as leverage is the secret to amplification and the most efficient use of force. So if you use a force just like for that, like you can use your strength to beat them, or you can use your strength in technique to beat them. So, what's better, technique or strength? Because like anybody can be strong, but if you're just strong, then somebody can beat you. Like it's just
Definitely technique.
yeah, because everybody starts off like thinking that they just can use their like strength to do it, but it doesn't work because sometimes they just try to do that and then somebody can just choke them out and they're just gonna tap because they use their strength the whole time, like some of my friends do.
Also the strength could help with the techniques.
Yeah, if you use your strength into the technique, then it's just like force plus force equals more force. I guess, yeah. So, yeah. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu also has the most developed methods of fighting while on one's back. Opposition, weaker fighters will often find themselves when attacked. The innovations of the Gracie family, most notably by the Grandmaster Carlos and Helio Gracie, and continued with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters today. Throughout consistent testing and refinement in the crucible of actual fights, has resulted to the unique style of Jiu-Jitsu. So you might ask, how do they grade each other? How do you know if somebody's better than you? How? Exactly. There's this thing called belts. And that's how they use to grade. So I'm gonna talk about the kids' belts. Okay. So when you start, you're always gonna be given a white belt. That's obvious. But when you're under 16, you have to wait 8 months to get the next belt, which could be gray and white. There's a lot of belts. I can do them. I can put them in the show notes, but I don't want to say them right now because
So there isn't just like a set, set ones that you have to go to after white. It's like it can vary.
Yeah, because I'm gonna put the belts, all the belt system, one by one in the show notes because it'll be too boring to say. But
Yeah.
if you exceed your expectations, your professor or whoever's teaching you can definitely like give you a higher belt than you're supposed to. Like right now, I'm in an orange belt, but I'm supposed to be at a like green and white belt. But I'm definitely gonna get green and white belt because I got mine like a while ago, and my age is not like it doesn't line up with my belt. Like my
So is orange better than green?
no, green is better than orange. Like you have to be 11 years old to get orange belt, solid orange belt, and you can be 13 years old to get green and white belt, which I am 13 years old. So, yeah. But the most important part is the adult ranking system. That I will talk about right now, because it's pretty confusing. So, you're 16 year older. What will your belt ranking work? I'll tell you. So a family member or colleague tells you about jiu-jitsu, right? Or you just find out about it yourself. You sign up. Now your first day. Usually the first thing you do is you get your kimono, or you could call it your gi. Then you tie your white belt around your waist. Then you step on what are called the mats. That is where you... What is your kimono?
Is that just a white belt?
No, the kimono is what this... It's like a suit that you wear.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. I can show you how it looks like in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the mats are where you're gonna train and learn. You line up by the belt ranks. The farthest to the left would be the lowest rank, and the farthest to the right would be the highest rank in the class. And in fact, that goes for all ages. They all line up on that line. The next, the teacher will warm you up or just let you roll straight away, and that would take up your whole class. A A minimum amount of years as a white belt is 1. When you get your blue belt after you trained for a year, and then you trained for 2 more years after that, you can get your purple belt. And if you train,
do you instantly get your blue belt, or do you have to be good enough?
it's when your coach. Yeah, I understand how you didn't get that. When they feel like,
But it's like, is it like, oh, as soon as you've done it for a year, you get your blue belt?
no, it's like you shouldn't expect to get your belt, because then that wouldn't be good. And plus, your coach probably is not going to give it to you right away. The only time I think that you would get it straight away on your birthday or something like that, like when you're 15 and you're turning 16 and you're like trained for like 10 years.
Yeah.
To get your and then like my friend, his name is Enrique. He did that. He got his blue belt right on his birthday, and then like he went to World Championships because like he needed a blue belt to compete there. So yeah, that would make sense, because some people get it all right on their birthday because they need it for a to compete.
But he's already definitely good enough. Like,
Yeah, well, yeah, he trained for like 10 years.
but he was just young.
Yeah, he was just too young to get that. But some people get their blue belt when they're like 15. I don't know.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, so now when you have your blue belt, right? Train for two more years, and then you can get your purple belt. That's minimal. And purple belt is weird. You need 18 months, at least, and then you can get your brown belt. So brown belt is the last one before black belt, which is the last belt. So black belt, brown belt, you have to only do 2 years. But sometimes people take like 10 years to finish this. Like my dad trained for 10 years. He's a black belt. He's really good.
Yeah.
I really look up to him. He's just the first degree though. So yeah, your first degree black belt you get right when you get your black belt, and the second degree you need is only probably sometimes 3 years or more. It's just the degrees don't really matter. Degrees are just like you've trained for a while and when you're a black belt and you get your degree. Just don't worry about your black belt degrees. Just worry about like when you're a black belt, if you're not teaching, then what are you doing? Like you gotta be teaching someone. Cause like your end goal is probably to get somebody to black belt. Like that's probably what I want to do. I want to get somebody from white belt to black belt. Like.
Be their trainer.
Yeah. Like wouldn't that be such a like? Wouldn't that be just like such a good feeling to get like somebody to black belt, and then they can do it too.
And the cycle continues.
Yeah. So yeah.
Wait, is there a difference in look for the degrees of the black belt?
Is there a difference in what?
In look for the degrees.
Oh yeah.
of the
So yeah, I was just gonna say that. So when you're at your 5th degree, you get your black and red belt. Actually, no, it's 6th degree and higher. 6th degree and higher, you get your red and black belt. And then 7th, 8th, 9th degree, you get your red belt. Red belt is probably the last belt that you're ever gonna get. You know how I talked about like a bunch of Gracies? Yeah. Like I know that like Helio's like grandmaster. People right now can only go to 9th degree. Only Carlos and Helio can get the red belt. Their 10th degree black belt or red.
Is that a different color?
Yeah, it's just a different color. I don't know. People tell me that it's a different belt, but it's just your 9th degree black belt. I don't know. And also,
You have to be like top of the world to get the 10th anyways.
Oh yeah, somebody told me that it's like 40 years of solid training, like 40 years of training, not 40
Just a bunch of 80-year-olds in a dojo.
Yeah, basically that.
Wow.
But there's like 40 in the world. Like there's not that much. But when there is one, you gotta give them some respect. Like they've got somewhere in their life.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about my personal experience now. So I started when I was like 6. I started when I was like 4 or 5. Yeah, I started when I was 5. Some girl told my dad about jiu-jitsu. I don't know. I think she was at my dad's job, and then my dad put me in the class, and then me and my cousin Daniel, we both went there, and then the next class my dad came there, and he really liked it. Everybody beat him up there. And then the next class my uncle came there, which is Daniel's dad. And then we had like a good reputation there. It was like my third class. It's pretty fun. And then like I spent like 2 years doing that. And then and then after that we moved gyms to this one gym that there was like this guy named Mike, and he promoted himself. And we really didn't like him. But we never knew that he promoted himself, because he just like, he had a brown belt, and then like a week later he had a black belt. So we had no idea how he got it, but then we found out after when he left, because he was a drug addict and stuff, that he promoted himself. So yeah.
You're cutting out. Sorry, I didn't hear just like the last 10 seconds of what you said.
The guy Mike. He promoted himself. He gave himself belts.
So he wasn't that good, but
yeah, just imagine giving yourself money.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Somebody has to give you that money.
Yeah.
Is that a good analogy?
Yeah.
And then he had to like leave because he was a drug addict.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I quit because me and my cousin were fooling around. I quit for like 3 years, I think. And then I came back to Kelowna. And then yeah, actually I forgot to tell you guys. Sorry about that. This was all in Fort McMurray in Alberta, where I used to live. I'm pretty bad at storytelling. This is my first podcast. I came to Kelowna. My cousin Daniel lived here, because in the summer they moved to Kelowna, and we're like, we should move too. So we moved here. And we moved here, so he was training here in Pacific Top Team, and then my dad obviously didn't quit, and at that time he was a purple belt, and then he went for Worlds, and he won first place, and the Worlds were hosted in, I think it was Los Angeles, California, and right beside Los Angeles there's a place called San Diego, and that's where my dad's 4th degree black belt trainer, professor lives. And actually recently he came to my house for like a little visit. Yeah, and he promoted him to brown belt there. And yeah, that was pretty fun. I wasn't there though, because I didn't do jiu-jitsu yet. And then after that, we came to Kelowna, started doing jiu-jitsu. I was literally so bad at it. Like, you should see me. I used so much of my strength. And then somehow I started liking it.
Yeah.
And then I remember this one Saturday. On Saturday we have this thing called open mat. Everybody just goes there and just rolls. You know what that is? It's where you just wrestle for like 3 hours straight every Saturday. And there was these two brothers. One was like 13 and the other one was 11. Those guys trained for like 10 years. Dude, they beat me up, and they didn't beat me up. They just like showed me how good you can get. Those guys were like world champions.
What belt were they?
At the time, they were both orange belts. So we have the same belts. But you know how my dad went to world championships? Yeah, they went to the kids ones, and they win every year. And sometimes it comes to them having to like verse each other, and they don't like versing each other, so they do rock, paper, scissors. Pretty interesting. And then whoever wins rock, paper, scissors, they count that.
Wait, they don't wrestle at all?
They don't wrestle each other, I don't know. In tournaments. I don't know. They're pretty interesting guys. Like, they're really good. And they have disabilities though. Like, they can't sweat. So when you put them in like a choke, which is never gonna happen, but if you do somehow, they're not gonna sweat, so that's kind of mean. So they're gonna be hot the whole time. So right now I do jiu-jitsu on a regular basis. On Monday, I do my teens class, and then the next hour I do help with the kids class, and then the next hour I go to my dad's class, which he teaches, and I stay there. He teaches technique, and then the next hour after that we roll, and I do that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and on Tuesday and Thursday I do Muay Thai right after school, which is just like MMA, just with elbows and your shins and your knees and stuff. Actually, no, they have knees in MMA. But, yeah, I do that on Tuesday and Thursday. It's a really good workout. I recommend it. So, yeah. What's your thoughts, Steven?
I think jiu-jitsu is a really cool thing, and you should keep doing it.
You want
like
to...
your dad.
Would you want to start it someday?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to know how to fight, defend myself.
Maybe you would want to start Muay Thai.
Maybe.
Okay. So...
Sign here.
So everybody, this is Andrei's podcast. Bye.